And welcome to Canadian Political Projections. Today we are going to cover if the federal election were to be held today. Last election was held in 2019, and since with the last half of the year that happened with the COVID relief funds from the government, we are going to take a look at the polls across the country and see if the election was held today, if the Liberals could be able to regain a majority government. Right now they have a minority government, and see if other ridings would flip towards another party, a party on the opposition. Right now, there are 54 toss-up ridings across the country. We are going to start in Vancouver. We're going to start taking a look at the ridings that would be up for grabs. Vancouver is going to be very interesting. Right now, the riding of Vancouver Granville, held by Jody Wilson-Raybould, is an independent. She left the Liberal Party last year, and right now it would be a toss-up, but we're going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals, as the Liberals are up in the polls in that riding. Now, interesting enough, the riding of Burnaby South, held by Jagmeet Singh, the NDP leader, is almost behind the polls. It is a very tight race, but since he's the leader of the NDP, I'm going to call it for the NDP, as he would probably spend a lot of time inside of his riding. The riding of Richmond Centre, held by Alice Wong from the Conservative Party of Canada, right now is behind in the polls, and the Liberals are winning by a few numbers, and I'm going to go ahead and call it for the Conservatives. If we're going to take a look more towards the east, we can take a look at 4 ridings that are up for grabs. We are going to take a look first at Central Okanagan Simclamen Nicola. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. It is currently held by the Conservative Party of Canada. Right now, the Conservatives have a thin margin in front of the Liberals, but I'm going to go ahead and call it for the Conservatives. Now, the second riding outside of Vancouver is Mission Netsquee Fraser Canyon, that is currently held by the Conservative Party, but the Liberals have a margin of 5% from the Conservatives, and I'm going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals. The third riding we're going to look at is Kamloops Thompson Caribou, that is currently held by the Conservative Party, and it is a very thin advantage for the Liberals, currently at 38.4 compared to the Conservative Party at 35.6. But I'm going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals. If we keep going, Kelowna Lake Country, it is currently held by the Conservatives, but it has flipped very strongly towards the Liberals with a lead of 9 points for the Liberals, and we're going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals. The riding of Kootenay Columbia is currently held by the Conservatives, and the Conservatives are still in the lead in a number of the polls. The NDP is behind by 3 points. It's still a riding that it is up for grabs in future elections, but we're going to go ahead and call it for the Conservatives. In Victoria, there is a tie between the NDP and the Liberal Party. It was currently held by the NDP member Laura Collins. It was won by them in 2019, but now they are tied in the polls. And as they are tied, and it would be interesting to see how this would play out. It is very interesting riding for the Liberals and the NDP to win. It is going to be very, very toss-up, and I think the Liberals are going to spend a lot of time trying to get that riding. I'm going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals. If we move towards Calgary, we see an interesting trend in Calgary. If we look at Calgary Centre, it is currently held by the Conservative Party, but the Liberals are winning by 5 points, and I'm going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals, as they are ahead in the polls. Calgary Confederation is very, very close. It razor thin margin for the Conservatives, with 36.1 compared to the Liberals with 35.8. I'm going to go ahead and call it for the Conservatives. It is very, very thin, but for today, if the elections were to be held today, I would call it for the Conservatives. If we keep going to Calgary Skyview, it is currently held by the Conservatives, but the Liberals are ahead, and we're going to call it for the Liberals. And the last Calgary riding is Calgary Forest Lawn. It is currently held by the Conservatives, and the Conservatives have a very thin lead in front, and I'm going to go ahead and call it for the Conservatives. Edmonton, we see there are a few ridings up for grabs, and it is an interesting look at what is going to happen. If we start with this riding of Edmonton Millwoods, it was won by the Conservatives, and now the Liberals are winning in the polls, and I would call it for the Liberals. If we look at Edmonton, Graceback, it is very, very close between the NDP and the Conservatives. The Conservatives won the riding in 2019, but the NDP is in the lead, and I'm going to call this one for the NDP. If we take a look at Edmonton Manning, it was won by the Conservatives, and the Conservatives are razorly thin, still winning that riding, and I'm going to call it for the Conservatives. Edmonton Centre is held by James Cumming, a member of the Conservative Party of Canada, although he is behind in the polls with 7%, and this is easy for me to call. I'm going to call it for the Liberals, as there's a very, very unlikely chance that the polls would flip towards him in this election. One Edmonton Riverbend is very close to call, although the Conservatives are still in the lead. They won this circumscription in 2019, and would win it again in 2020. Moving on to Saskatchewan, we can see that the riding of the Sente Mississippi Churchill River is currently held by the Conservative Party, although the Liberal Party are in the lead by 6% in the polls, and I'm going to call this one for the Liberals in Saskatchewan. If we go to Saskatoon, there's only one riding up for grabs, and it is very close to call between the NDP and the Conservatives in the riding of Saskatoon West. It is currently held by the Conservatives, but there's a 1% change in the polls difference, and we're going to go and call it for the Conservative Party. In Manitoba, in Churchill, Kiiwetinoong, Aski, it is currently held by the NDP member, Nikki Ashton. Right now, the NDP is razor thin in front of the Liberals, and I'm going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals. Although I'm sure that the Liberals are going to spend a lot of time trying to get that riding to come back towards the Liberals. If we go into Winnipeg, we can see that there are two ridings up for grabs. We can see that Kildonan St. Paul is handsomely in the lead. It was currently held by a Conservative, and now the Liberals are handsomely in front, and I'm going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals. And now we can call for sure that the Liberal government would have a majority government if an election was held in 2020. If we go to the next riding in Winnipeg, we go to Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Hedling. We can see that CPC had the riding, and now there's more than 20% lead for the Liberals, and I'm going to go ahead and easily call that for the Liberals. If we go towards Regina, we can see that currently the Conservative Party are at 38.8 and the Liberals at 44.7. There's a big lead for the Liberals. I'm going to go and call it for the Liberals that are going to win that riding of Regina West Canada. Moving on towards Ontario, currently the Kenora riding held by the Conservatives are behind in the polls by 5%. I'm going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals. They're going to win their riding back from 2015 and as they lost it in 2019. Moving on in Ontario, we can see that closer to the Toronto area, we have the riding of Parry Sound Muskota, held by the Conservatives. The Conservatives are slightly in front of the Liberals by 2%. And I'm going to go ahead and call for the Conservatives, as the Conservatives will definitely fight hard in that riding to keep their riding. If we go towards Simcoe North, is held by the Conservatives, and the Conservatives again have only a 2% lead in front of the Liberals. It is going to be very, very tight if there was an election. The Liberals in the riding of Barrie, Springwater, Oro, Medonte are leading by 2% the Conservatives. The Conservatives won the riding in 2019, and we're going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals. In the riding of Simcoe Grey, held by the Conservatives, it is almost tied between the Conservatives and the Liberal. I'm going to go ahead and call it for the Conservatives. For Dufferin, Caledon, we see the Conservatives won the riding in 2019, but now the Liberals have a 1% lead in front of them, and we're going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals. If we keep going beside of the Toronto area, we are going to see the riding of Lennox Addington, that is held by Derek Sloan, a member of the Conservative Party. Since the Liberals are ahead by 6%, we're going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals, although Derek Sloan is running for the leadership of the Conservative Party, and right now, since the Conservatives are going through a change in leadership, this may cause a difference in their voting tendencies. If we go ahead and look at the Carleton riding held by Pierre Poilievre, a very strong Conservative member in their party, he is winning by only 1%, although I'm going ahead and call it for the Conservatives anyways, even if be even closer or tied, as Pierre Poilievre would probably spend a lot of time in his running and do a very good job, and the Conservatives would help him a lot. Bay of Quinte, the Liberal Party won in 2019 that seat, and I'm going to go ahead and call it again for the Liberals, as they have a 6-point lead from the Conservatives. Northumberland, Peterborough South, held by the Conservatives, is going to be a flip towards the Liberals, as they lost their riding in 2019. The riding of Durham, held by Aaron O'Toole. He's running for the Conservative Party leadership. Right now, he's ahead in the polls by 4%. It will be a toss-up in the general election, although we're going to go ahead and call it for the Conservatives. If we keep going down towards close to Niagara Falls, we have the riding of Niagara West, held by the Conservatives, and the Conservatives are going to win this riding again by a few points. The riding of Brantford Brant by the Conservatives, it is almost tied between the Liberals and the Conservatives, but we're going to go ahead and call it to the Conservatives, as they are winning by only a 2% difference, 0.2% difference. If we go in Niagara, right now, the Conservatives have the riding of Niagara Falls, although the Liberals are winning by just a few percent. So we're going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals. If we go into the Toronto metro area, there are only 2 ridings up for grabs. We have the riding of Aura, Oak Ridge, Richmond Hill, held by the Conservative Party, but right now we see that the Liberals are in front by almost 9%. We're going to go ahead and call it to the Liberals. Markham, Unionville, held by the Conservatives, probably flipping towards the Liberals, but we're going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals by only 1%. We're going to go ahead and call it a Liberal riding. In the Hamilton area, we only have Flamborough, Glenbrook, which is going to be handsomely won by the Liberals once again. Going to Quebec. Quebec is a very flip province. We are going to start with the circumscription of Abitibi, Baie-James, Nunavik, Ayu, currently held by the Bloc Québécois, although we're going to head and call it again for the Bloc, even though it would be very, very tight if there was an election. Very difficult to call. In the Montreal South area, we see a lot of ridings towards the Bloc Québécois, although it'd be interesting to see if they would be able to keep their ridings. Right now we have the riding of Montarville, held by the Bloc, by Stéphane Bergeron, although the Liberals right now are winning by just razor-thin numbers by 1%, so we're going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals. If we keep going to Longueuil Saint-Hubert, currently held by the Bloc, although the Liberals are winning by 2% inside that riding. We're going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals. If we keep going closer towards Montreal, we have the riding of La Prairie, held by the Bloc right now, although the Liberals will be able to take that seat if there's an election today. On the north side of Montreal, there's Thérèse de Blainville, held by the Bloc, although the Liberal Party will be able to win this riding by thin numbers. Here in Mille, same thing. The Liberals will be able to win by razor thin numbers. In Quebec City, right now, it is held mixed between the Conservatives and the Liberals, and we have one riding up for grabs, Beauport-Limoilou. It was held by the Bloc and is going to flip towards the Liberals by 2%, 30 against 28. It's very, very close. Even for the Conservatives, they could also win that riding. But we're going to go ahead and call it for the Liberals. If we look at the riding Chicoutimi Forge, it was won by the Conservatives in a special election, and the Conservatives and the Bloc are very, very close, and we're going to go ahead and call it for the Bloc. If we go towards New Brunswick, we can see a few ridings are up for grabs. One that was from the Green Party. It was Fredericton, although it is very hard to tell who is going to win. But we're going to go ahead and call it towards the Liberals as they have a handsome lead, which is a riding that is flip-flopping towards parties, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in the next election. In New Brunswick Southwest, we see that it was held by the Conservatives. The Conservatives are winning by 3% in the polls right now. We're going to go ahead and call it for the Conservatives, although it would be very interesting to see how that would actually play out. If we look at Fundy Royal, held by the Conservatives, very, very close between the Conservatives and the Liberals, but we're going to go ahead and call it for the Conservatives. Now, in Nova Scotia, we have West Nova, held by the Conservatives, although it is going towards the Liberals, and the Liberals are going to win the riding by almost 8%, which gives them a very, very good lead. Coming back in Ontario, we have one last projection. In Hamilton, we have Flamborough Glenbrook, which is held by the Conservatives. Otherwise, it is going to flip towards the Liberals and bring them into a good lead. And we have finally one toss-up seat that is Hamilton Mountain, that is held by the NDP, but it is going to lead towards the Liberals, and Scott Dovell is going to lose his seat. And with that, we have 192 seats for the Liberals. That is an increase from 157. The Conservatives are going to stay the same with 95. The Bloc is going to decrease of 6 seats. The NDP with 24 seats are going to lose 1. The Green is going to lose 1. And the PPC, there is no change in the PPC. As Maxime Bernier lost his riding in 2019 of the Beauce area, and he's still very, very much behind the polls. We can see that the Liberals are up in the polls. They're gaining a lot of momentum right now. It is up to see if they're going to be able to keep that momentum and possibly win those seats that they were up for grab today. We can see that we have a Liberal majority government, and the Conservatives are staying the same, but although they are going through a leadership change, so as the Green Party. This may change into future elections, but this prediction was made if the election was held today on Sunday, May 31st.